Okay, Be the Bridge community. I have a special treat. Every week that we have a podcast, it's always a special treat because these are people that are pouring their life into their work and to their writings or their poetry or to their ministry or to their community or world. And so today I have a special treat. And she's really special because we share the same name. And I don't know if you've heard of her, but you want to go and make sure you follow her. Her name is Tasha Jun. That's right. I said Tasha Jun. We are the Tashas here today. And so I'm going to say her name a lot because I just love my name and I love her name. And so Tasha Jun is a Korean American storyteller. Writing has always been the way God has led her toward home and the hope of shalom. She currently writes as a monthly contributor for Encourage and has been featured in publications such as Relevant Magazine, Fathom Magazine, Home Life Magazine, and The Mudroom. Tasha lives in the greater Indianapolis area with her husband and three children. And she also has a book coming out May the 9th, 2023, and it's called Tell Me the Dream Again, Reflections on Family, Ethnicity, and the sacred work of belonging. I love that because so much, we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but belonging is such a huge part of that because you can have those. And if people don't feel like they belong, um, it just does a disservice. And so you can have you can have diversity, but those of you, if you have diversity in your organization or your community or your church, as people who are not the majority, do they feel like they belong there? And I just did this exercise with some students at a high school, and a lot of the children, a lot of the students stood up and said that they felt like they belonged, but there were a handful, like there were several that felt like they didn't. And so you can discount that because you say, well, majority of them feel like they belong, but then you ask the question, why don't you feel like you belong? Why do you feel unseen? Maybe you feel unheard, or maybe something has happened. Maybe, there's a lot of things underneath that to get underneath that. So I think that's just a great title. And I know that's a part of your story of belonging. And tell me a little bit how you came up with that title and what does belonging mean to you, Tasha?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I love being
Yeah.
with another Tasha.
Yeah.
Super fun. So I'm really grateful to be here. Yeah, that was good. That was really interesting what you shared about the high school.
Yeah.
Just like goes to my heart. Just thinking about those that didn't feel that, and how you can have both in one
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for me, when I dug a little deeper into some of my own pain, I just kept coming back to that desire to belong. And in my story, the places where I struggled to find that or receive that, or offer that on the flip side. Um, and so I just kept coming back to that. And as a deep feeler, I think I kind of had to stay there for a while. And I think for me, belonging is being able to um, be in a place or a space where you are your whole self, and where your whole self is welcome to stretch out, and also have room to become at the same time. So,
Well,
because I think sometimes it's a process for us, um, embracing that whole self and bringing it, I guess. So, I think there's more to it, but I think that's kind of the core of
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was life like growing up as Tasha? And I know you said your mom called you Tasha
Yeah.
June. And you gave me a little history about that. Could you explain to the audience like a little bit of history about your name?
Yeah.
Um, and,
So yeah, the Tasha part was, I mean, that was a little random because my parents liked an actress called, I think her name was Natalie Wood, and her daughter's name was Natasha, but they
uh-huh.
didn't want it. They wanted it to be different. Both of them, they kind of both carry that.
Mhm.
born to a Korean mother and a white father. Um, and so they picked Tasha.
Mhm.
And June is just a name that my mom loved. It's Korean. I didn't find out until later, though, that she said that usually boys were named June. Um, and usually there's more to it, like June Ho or June, another part to
Yeah,
it.
right.
But again, with that wanting to be different, they just took June. And I have memories of my mom saying it very affectionately. It is what she called me when she was being really affectionate, or when she was really mad at me. So it's like Tasha Jun. So it's just very much like dear to
Yeah.
me, because of that. So
Right. Right. I, and my name is actually Latasha, but I go by Tasha.
okay.
And I was telling you, I was born in June, and my grandfather. Now, to hear that, like June is a Korean name, but it maybe is attached to other things. But my grandfather's name is June, also. It was Drew, but so really interesting. Names mean something, and I love the fact that I know growing up, I had this distaste for my name because it was
Mm,
very what you would say. The best way I could put it, you could identify my ethnicity by my name
yeah.
in some ways, but what I'm learning as I've grown up is like there's so many different people named Tasha, like because it actually is, I think, a Russian
Yeah.
name like Natasha, and so I meet all types of people with the name Tasha. So, but when you think about this is the name that your parents
Yeah.
gave you, and to be appreciative and just to love that, and I think it means um like the birth of Christ or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. So that's that was when I was like, oh, this like significant.
Yeah.
I love. Oh, great, great. Now tell me a little bit about did you grow up in Indiana?
I didn't. I was actually born in California. My dad is from California and he grew up there. And that is where he and my mom met. And we lived there for a little while, then moved to Wisconsin for a
Okay.
year, and then New York for a year. And then we actually moved to Japan. And that was a big move, not just because it was overseas, but we lived there for kind of like my formative elementary school years.
Mhm.
And that's when we actually got to travel as a family to Korea. So the first time I ever went to Korea was in the summers throughout those years. And then moved back to California, to the city that I was born in. And
Mhm.
then right before high school, moved to Indiana. So that's when Indiana
Okay.
came into the picture, and it was a
Okay.
big shock. So yeah, it was a big change.
Yeah, the only thing I remember, I've been through Indiana. I've
Mm,
never been there. I can't recall. There are places that I've been that
yeah,
I just don't remember. I'm telling you, I'm getting older, and sometimes I'm
I get
forgetting.
that.
But I just remember going through there. I think we were on our way to Illinois,
Okay.
and there was a snowstorm. And this is probably when I was in college. And there was like a major snowstorm, and they were like, you can go over here to this restaurant when the bus stopped, or you can go to this restaurant. And it was like a mom and pop or a McDonald's. And we were trying to make it to the McDonald's, which was only probably about 100 yards away, but we could not make it. I had never seen snow come down like that. It was like a blizzard. It felt like, and we were probably, I'm probably over exaggerating, but it was like cold. And basically, hardly any of us,
Yeah,
made. I grew up in North Carolina. We didn't, we would get snow. The weather has changed a lot on the
yeah,
East Coast, but so we had winter clothes, but not like that type of winter clothes
right.
because that. Uh, actual blizzard that was coming down. So I don't know too much about Indiana, but I know in your book you start your book off with the prologue of a story about a friend asking to come over.
Yeah,
And before he showed up, you looked around, checking the fridge for smells, searching to see if things seemed normal. You ended up not letting him in.
yeah,
You say in your book, you said, I've come to believe that the narrative that my ethnicity and cultural details would turn people away. At a young age, I learned to believe my Korean normal was embarrassing. a barrier to belonging and the enemy of my deepest longings. You're sharing your story. You sharing your story will bring freedom to a lot of people because a lot of people think this,
Mm,
but they would not articulate it.
mm,
There's shame or embarrassment with coming from that. Just
yeah,
kind of like what I said about my
yeah,
name. What are your hopes that you have for this book, as maybe other little girls
yeah,
are reading this that identify as you,
yeah.
like
I
you.
mean, I think my deepest hope is that readers who come across it will feel seen, will know that they're not alone. Because I think, as you said, the shame that I think we feel sometimes, or that we're taught to feel, about who we are, and then the shame that we feel for feeling those things, because that's kind of wrapped,
Yeah.
you know, can really isolate us. And I think there's a lot more stories out there now that help. But that's my deepest hope, is that people will feel seen and not alone, because I do think that gives a doorway to freedom and to,
Yeah.
feeling like your story can be liberated. And I also just hope that, even though I'm writing really specifically about me, I know some
Mhm.
people will have really similar experiences, but I hope that being really specific will help people to be specific about themselves, and just take a look within, um, and be able to see their own values and, or their own distinctions with value, I should say, and attention, like give attention to those things.
And we take a lot of our really our self-esteem, our confidence, and a lot of times our racial identity from our mom,
Yeah.
and I've heard Kathy Kong, she had stated before about how her mom came over from Korea with all these beautiful, like Korean outfits. And
Mm,
she was saying that they were put in this trunk and she stored them away because she wanted to fit in, and wearing those beautiful garments would not allow her to fit in,
yeah,
and so there's this assimilation process that her mom went through, sometimes in order to thrive
yeah,
or survive. It's like a lot of times survival, and so sometimes you don't teach the language to the next generation because you don't want them to be picked on or
yeah,
harassed. What was that like with your mom? Like you
yeah,
said, your mom is Korean American and your father is white. So what was that like? How did your mom like infuse who you are in you, or if
yeah,
she did?
yeah. I would say that, so for her and her own experience, when she first came over to the States, it was actually with her first marriage.
Okay.
And that was a very difficult experience. Her first time in the US was very, just really difficult. She did not know any other Koreans. So, I mean, almost immediately when she set foot here, it was like there was nowhere for her to express herself. She learned English, from watching TV. And so by the time I was born, I think that all of that was still very fresh, and I think she did not want me to struggle. And so whether she realized it or not, I mean, she'll say now, I tried to teach you Korean, but you didn't
Yeah.
listen. But I remember as a kid, I think she was still learning English, and she was also wanting me to have everything that she felt like she couldn't have. And
Mm.
so, that was never articulated, but it was very felt. And so my experience was that at home, everything was very Korean. The way that she moved, the way that she nurtured me with food
Yeah.
or cared for me, it was all very Korean. Like even bath time, it was very typical Korean, where we had like the nylon washcloths and she scrubbed my back and we bathed together. And there's a story in the book about how when I realized this wasn't typical for my non-Korean friends, and just how shocking it was for me. But, and then I would step out the door, and I feel like she was probably of my parents, like the louder one, or the one, I mean, culturally, and as the mother, I
Yeah.
think what you said was really right on. Like it just was how our home was run.
Hmm.
So even if the language wasn't there, it was very Korean, like down to the core. But then when I would step outside, it was a whole nother world, you know? And so I was constantly, without even thinking about it, stepping out and like, okay, I put that away. So then the thought of having someone come into that was like, oh, oh, like this is a
Yeah.
whole nother side of me that I don't bring with me anywhere.
Mm,
Or I try not to at least.
yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I really think that that was true for her. I think for her it was survival. Um, and just not wanting me to go through any of the pain that she went through.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that
Yeah.
because I know those are tender
Yeah.
parts of you. And so thanks for sharing that. And hopefully those that are listening, this may resonate with you. I know a lot of times when I'm talking to people who are actually identify as biracial, we were just in a actually another school.
Oh,
And one of our team members who is biracial, because of the kids noticed that they had a lot of questions like how do you
mm,
navigate both sides of your family,
yeah.
especially in the tension of the culture with maybe home is a safe space with your parents, but maybe when you're visiting grandparents or aunts or uncles or cousins, it's not so much as a safe space, and trying
Yeah.
to navigate that because you love all the parts of you.
Right.
And so they were just really wanting to know, like, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you navigate being this particular person is black and white? They were saying, how are you navigating this? And so that's important, where you were saying like at home was very much so Korean, but when you stepped out the door, it was like you put on a mask
Yeah.
almost. This is what I mean. I can relate to that in a sense
Mm,
because as an African American, we've always had to do that, for
mm,
people in many ways. So I totally understand exactly what you mean, where, maybe we change our accent,
yeah.
or maybe we articulate things a certain way, or maybe, many of us change our names,
Yeah.
um, because of maybe our names sound more ethnic or as a name that's joked about or
Mm,
like that. So I totally understand. You also feel you say a lot about you didn't feel completely Korean either. That you have always been caught between two worlds, American and Korean, faith and doubt, devotion, and fierce independence. Could you share a little bit more about what you were feeling unfit as a Korean, but somehow too Korean in some other places?
yeah. Um, I mean, I think the two Korean is kind of like what we talked about already. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking more when we moved to Indiana, that was kind of the shocker where I was in a space for the first time that was predominantly white,
Mhm.
where I could count the number of Asians, not just in my grade, but in the entire school on one hand. And
Mhm.
I looked for them, like, just as like
Right.
without even thinking about it. And so I think that was just a really formative time for me, moving here in high school. And so during that time, I think I felt too Korean. My first day of school, I had people coming up to me, and this kind of sums it all up, saying, "Are you the new Chinese girl? Um, are you Hawaiian? Are you Mexican?" And that's partially because by being biracial, they couldn't quite tell because I looked Asian but didn't fit the stereotype that they had known,
Right.
which was
Mhm.
very slim
Yeah.
and inaccurate. Um, but just feeling like, gosh, like people have the audacity to come up to
Right.
me and just ask
Right.
me these questions and expect me to
Yeah.
answer them. So there was that. But then on the flip side, when I was younger and we lived in Japan, the first things I learned to say in Japanese was, watashi wa American jin desu. I'm American. And watashi wa Kankokujin. I would say I was Korean, because they would be confused about
Mm.
when I said I was American, they were like, "What?" Because we expect
Yeah.
someone different with blonde hair and blue eyes, and then I
Yeah.
would say I'm Korean, and then it was even more confusing. So then the first time we went to Korea one summer, our first summer there, we were actually looking for my mom's family because she had lost contact with her family and lost family members because of the Korean War. Um, and so we're looking for her family. And I had just experiences all over the place where, and this is also in the book, but where, these high school kids spit on my sister and I. And I had no idea why. And then later my mom had explained to me it's because your dad is white and they don't like that you are mixed and that you're here. And I'm like, oh, I'm thinking we're going home to Korea,
Wow.
and feeling like, oh, I didn't know there were people here that just, hate and kind of have blame, because of what had happened during the war. So, and I couldn't understand that as a child. But
Mhm.
now, having more context, it's like, oh, that's a really complicated feeling.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
not, anyway, so there was that. And then also feeling like, oh, they don't see you as Korean. They see you as American. You're my American daughter, and you are not Korean. And so it
Yeah.
was just shocking, I think. And then in some Korean American communities, my mom would try to bring us into, my sister and I, and just feeling very much like, oh, we're not the same. There's
Mm,
something different here. We can't speak. I don't know what they're talking about. So,
right.
yeah, just kind of being shocked by that and wondering, oh, so I don't belong there, but then I don't really belong here. So,
Right.
nowhere,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And those, I know people who are listening, many of you can identify with that.
Mm,
African Americans, we can identify that. I've been back to Africa, and
yeah.
people are like, "Where are you from?" And you say you're American, like, okay, because they think American is white,
Yeah.
and so then they find out, oh, they see you as American, but then it's like, okay, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from North Carolina. No, but where are your grandparents from? They're also from North
Yeah.
Carolina. And we can go back 5, 6 generations.
Yeah.
And so but that was the longing for me because of those questions, was to try to find out,
Yeah.
because I didn't realize there was a piece of me. So I think, with you going back, we talked about before, going to Korea. I just, went to Korea with my best friend in October of 2022. And this was a trip that we had planned for a long time. And it was incredible. Now, now you talking about standing out. Tall black girl with
Yeah.
braids. I stood out in Korea, and they made it known that I stood out because everybody was
Oh,
looking.
no.
But but because I prepare myself for that
Yeah.
when I go to another country, that's like expected.
Yeah.
Um, but no one was rude or anything.
Mm,
It was like, I probably would stare at me too. Like, you know, but especially with the curiosity of the braids and all of that. And so my friend, she was looking for more people that look like her because she
mm,
is biracial,
yeah.
American and Korean, and she didn't see that. She didn't,
Mm,
we were trying to find, she thought she would see, she said, more people
yeah.
that were biracial. So I don't know. I think she's still even processing the trip.
Oh, I
And so what has it been like for you, going back and as an adult and maybe taking your children?
Yeah. So we haven't been back with, so we've got two boys and a daughter, and our daughter is actually adopted from Korea. So the
Okay.
most recent time that I went back as an adult was with my husband, was when we brought her home.
Okay.
Um, and our boys have not been yet. And she's obviously been because she was born there, but she doesn't remember much. So
Okay.
part of wanting to go back is just for all of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But going back as an adult was, I mean, I think it was shocking to me how much had changed from what I remembered as a child. I mean, the country has changed so much. And
Yeah.
I didn't experience any of the negative things I had experienced before. Um,
Yeah.
but also, I wasn't with my mom. And so I feel like I was almost a little bit more outside of the communities, like not, I didn't, step into as many. And
Okay.
the trip was different. But we're
Yeah.
excited to go in October, though. I can't.
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, it's a beautiful country. It's very new because,
Yeah.
the impact of the war and everything. And, but, like one of the things is like all the buildings are like shiny and new. I couldn't find like any like trash, like they do not litter there. Like, so if you ever go, do not litter there. Like, you will get a ticket. Like, do
Yeah.
not litter. They are serious about that. And everything is just really clean,
Mm,
very clean. And when you talk about like the smells, like you were trying to, you didn't want your friend to smell anything. It's so funny because like first of all, I love kimchi.
yay.
Yeah, but it's like going there, I realized that people we just behind, like they have like special
Yeah.
refrigerations for the food. And so you don't really I didn't smell anything.
Yeah.
Like we went to a fish market. It was the cleanest fish market that I had ever gone to in my life. Like it's just totally different. So you can see that as a part of the culture, like image. I don't really know. You probably
Yeah.
know more about it, but I was just really just intrigued that we went to a fish market, and I've gone to fish markets with my grandmother,
Yeah.
and it did not look like and smell like what
Yeah.
I've seen, and I tried to capture as much of my visit on video because I like to, for people, sometimes we can make assumptions about things
Yeah.
and people and groups of people,
Yeah.
and we don't really know until we step in. And so I
Hmm.
wanted to record video so that people can see, so people can see as you travel, like, wow, we have a lot in common,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
we like some of the same things. And, so I love to do that. How would you say you talk a little bit about this in your book too? You say how do you feel like the American church has failed to see and embrace your ethnic identity?
Yeah, it's such a hard question, because I definitely I see myself as part of the American church,
Mhm,
and I think looking back on my own journey,
mhm,
I see the places where I was afraid or where I held back, and not that it's all on me, but I do regret a lot of like that holding in, that hiding. Um, but on the flip side, I think when I look back, from decades ago to just not that long ago,
right,
I think there was so much pressure to assimilate, not just in,
mm,
greater culture, American culture, but also especially within the church. And
yeah,
so my experience, and I didn't start going to church regularly until I was in high school. So in Indiana again,
mhm,
was very much that there was this pressure to assimilate to a white expression of church community. And not just that it was the only way or it was because the majority of people were white. I think I felt that it was the right way to do things. And got that feeling, whether it was explicitly said or just, this where it's silent, but you feel it so deeply.
right,
So I think even like early on in my faith journey, I think people would reiterate people a part of the church or people that were in leadership over me that my identity was in Christ, and this was often a response to me bringing something up about my ethnicity, like a desire to start working through that,
mhm,
but having no space to do that, and kind of being told that in such a shallow way, like your identity
mhm,
is in Christ, so that doesn't matter. So then like me for so long thought I was crazy, like just
right,
why
right,
is this so hard for me?
mhm,
And so, yeah, I think there can be, there has been, there still is just such a rejection, whether it's intentional or not, towards curiosity and just this kind of widespread ignorance when it comes to like learning and receiving history, and how that's very much matters for our church communities. Um, yeah, that's a lot.
yeah. No, that's good. I mean, because I've heard that our identity as Christians is in Christ, and so I would also put that back on people who are part, what you would say as the white culture
Yeah,
doesn't see themselves as a ethnicity, and
right.
so I think it's important for we teach and be the bridge, like to find out
Yeah,
those roots, because you also are part of of an ethnicity, and that you also have an identity that shows up very strong
Yes.
in our culture and very strong in Christian culture.
Right.
We conflict Christian culture with European culture a lot. Like, so a lot of things that we say are Christian culture is really European culture. We call certain names Christian names, and it's like, no, Johnny is not a Christian name. Like, why? That's
Right.
my baptism name. No, that's your European name. So,
Yeah.
so it's just even stuff like that there's not one ethnicity, not one culture that can represent the totality of who God is. It
Right.
takes every nation, every tribe. And I think we have to realize that, we are a part of a tribe, we are a part of a nation. And so that helps us not to other people
Yeah.
outside of that framework. And I think that's really important
Yeah, definitely.
for us to see. Um, what would you say, how can we become better listeners when it comes to the complex stories of the biracial experience?
Mm. That's such a good question. I think one of the biggest things I think to kind of just maybe just understand or to know is that
Mhm.
those of us that are biracial or multiracial, like that we embody this kind of like nonstop both and experience.
Yeah.
And we embody this diversity within ourselves, that we see out there. It's kind of ingrained. So I think keeping that in mind while
Uh-huh.
listening to anyone's story is just really important. And then just beyond that, that we can't really be categorized, when it
Mhm.
comes to our own identities and experiences. I think
Mhm.
most of us have been asked to pick one, whether that's
Mm.
like on a census or, even sometimes within our own families, which
Uh-huh.
is very confusing. And then also just in the world, wanting to know where our allegiance is or something. It's very strange. So I think um, knowing that that is kind of what most of us have probably been through in some way or another,
Mhm.
but want I think at our core to bring our whole stories, and they're very
Yeah.
different, like just
Yeah.
depending on
Right.
mother father mix, it's just
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
different, but wanting to be able to bring that and tell it ourselves, I think is just a desire and just important.
Yeah, we're just coming off of a season of award season here, and I don't know if you watched the Oscars or
Yeah.
any of the awards leading up to that, and the movie Everything, Everywhere, All at
Yeah.
Once. I have not seen it yet, so I'm sorry, I had to admit I have not seen. I haven't seen half of the movies
It's so
that
hard to keep up.
it's so hard to
Yeah.
keep up. But Michelle, I love her. I loved her in several of the movies that she's played in. But Michelle Yao,
Yeah.
like she just won her first Oscar, and so like I mean, I
Mhm.
think it was the first Asian American woman to ever win an Oscar. And I know, like, even as an African American, seeing that, like, it's like you're rooting for anyone that has been on the
Yeah.
margins that have never received
Yeah.
any. I was really, really glad because she's I mean, she is an excellent, like,
Hmm.
actress. I mean, and like just every movie, if you go back to all the movies that she's played in, I mean, even Crazy Rich Asians,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I was like, that she was like no joke in that movie. And and I know, what did that feel like to you to see this representation? I
Yeah.
know that it's gonna do a lot for just young, Asian American children,
Yeah.
that are seeing this, and maybe, in general, because in America we just kind of put everybody in one category, although there's different identities, but we kind of do that, and so it's kind of like, we all win, in that sense. But I mean, what did that feel like for
Yeah.
you, hearing that she won?
Yeah. I mean, I cried. I think,
Yeah.
you
Oh, I love it.
remember, representation is so important to me, not just like on the outside, but just, all these layers that are wrapped up in that. I remember in high school, again, the first time I saw Joy Luck Club, and I wrote about this. I wrote an article about this, but just it broke a dam in me. Like just
Wow.
it was the first time I had ever seen, you know, Asian American women on screen telling their stories in such a vibrant way. And these were Chinese American women,
Yeah.
so not even the same, but it was just something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then their mothers, it was like a mother daughter, you know.
Right.
And so seeing people that were like my mom and just some of the struggles that they went through that I had
Right.
never been able to talk about with anyone ever. Never had found a place to talk about any of that. You know, it just broke this dam in me. And, you know, I didn't know the term representation matters then, but I knew that it was life changing. Like it
Mm.
changed something forever. And so I think since then, anytime there's been anything, it's like, it's just a lot of joy. And then I think there's a little bit of grief too, if that's not weird to say, because it's
Mm.
like, I think, gosh, like my kids are growing up, it's a little different, better. We have a long way to go, but it's
Right. Right.
better. And I feel this grief for all the years of like just not seeing it. So it's
Uh-huh.
like a double thing. But I mean, when she won, I felt like I just cried because not only she's been in a ton of movies. I remember
Right.
going to see Crouching Tiger, Hidden.
Yeah. Hit a
It
dragon.
was
Yeah.
empty in the theater. I'm like, why don't
Mm.
people know how amazing this is?
That was an incredible movie.
Yeah. But then to
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
her win and kind of it be acknowledged across the board, like this isn't just for Asian people. Like this is
Yeah.
important,
Right. Right.
what you said. So I think that just felt is so deserved for her. And then just like, oh, like this big sigh of
Yeah.
relief of like, you know, joy. Yeah. And then just wanting more. I just want so
Yeah.
much more for all of our
Yeah.
communities, especially like you
Yeah.
said, that are more marginalized and overlooked. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important when we see movies, that, maybe like this movie has a lot of um, Asian actors
Yeah.
and actors in the movie, or if you see a movie that has more um, South Asian or Bollywood films, all
Right.
that, it doesn't mean it's not for you. Like
Oh,
we don't do that when it comes to any other movie. Like, half of us has seen When Harry Met Sally or
right.
You've Got Mail or Sweet Home Alabama,
Yeah.
that none of those movies had any people of color in it. But we watch, those movies because we enjoy them. I mean, look at Superman, Spider-Man, like all those
Yep.
things. And so just because it doesn't, if you're uncomfortable with seeing and following if the lead actor doesn't look like you or actress doesn't look like you and you that makes you uncomfortable, that's something to examine,
Oh, yeah.
and to really look into, like, why am I uncomfortable with this,
Right.
and even when you're going places, that's just a thermometer check to see, like, to really deal with those biases and
Yeah.
that you may have, and you may need to take pause and say, where's this coming from,
Yeah.
and really press through those things. So if you haven't seen this movies, like if you haven't seen a movie that had a leading character that doesn't look like you need to go do that.
Yeah.
If you haven't been in a place where you are the minority, you need to go do that.
Right. Right.
You need to go to visit the other side of town. You need to go, like, look, I shop at Super H a lot of time, H Mart,
Yeah.
and I love Super H. I mean, H Mart all the time. Like, first of all, they have the best fruit in there. And so, but like, there's a lot of things you can do in your community to really diversify and get out of this
Yeah.
homogenous living, because it really does a disservice, and it does a disservice to the kingdom of God, in
Oh,
that
yeah.
sense, because, like, people, I'm like, I always ask people, do you think eternity is going to look like this? Like, really?
I
Like,
know. Right.
you know?
Yeah. I
So,
totally agree. It's like represent. So
yeah.
I think sometimes it just feels like representation. Yes, it matters to me, but it's for everyone. Like
Yes,
you're missing
yes.
out. Yeah. And
It's
it,
for
yeah.
you're missing out,
Yeah.
and that's what we think when we think diversity is really divisive.
Yeah.
You have missed
Oh,
something,
yeah.
because diversity is a part of creation. Look how boring the world would be if we only had one species of
Oh,
birds,
yeah.
or the ocean. And I mean, you think about God's diversity from the beginning of Genesis 1:1, like, and then what is spoken in Revelation 7:9. Like, we better get it together. Like, diversity is a part of God's plan from the beginning to the end. And when we see that we have really let some sinful secular notions really creep into
Mm,
the faith, you know.
mm-hmm.
You persevered through the losses and the injustices over the past year. You know, there's been a
Yeah.
lot as it relates to the violence against
Yeah.
Asian Americans here in our country, and just so many things that are happening. I was just watching um, a story about a family that was attacked. I mean,
Mm,
severely attacked. I think it was in California. And, I mean, the mom received stitches, like
mm,
all of these things that happen. And this man is still walking around.
I-
And the police identified it as a traffic accident
oh,
when there was no traffic accident.
oh,
Um,
wow.
Police report there was no traffic accident. It was like they pulled into the McDonald's and they were physically attacked by the guy that was had road rage. And the dad, everybody was attacked, and this person is still walking around, and they had to get a lawyer. And there was a lot because the mom, she there's a um I don't know if it was a sense of shame that she was carrying because she wasn't able to communicate as well,
Oh, yeah.
because she didn't speak English. But the daughter was speaking on behalf, and I was
Yeah.
just imagine the weight that the children in that family are carrying because of that. And
Mm,
just like, and these things are happening, it
yeah.
doesn't matter where you live, and there are two different Americas,
Yeah.
and justice doesn't look like justice for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
how have you persevered through this,
Yeah.
this?
So I mean, I know this is not coming out until May, but I think today is the 2-year anniversary of the Atlanta, the spot
Yeah.
workers that were murdered. And so I've just been thinking through that a little bit. Just recently, kind of carry some of that grief and anger around in our bodies.
Yeah.
Over
Yeah.
the last few years, I think as some stuff has surfaced and been in the news, barely, but has been there. I think I've really had to give some honest, space for my feelings. I
Mm,
think some of the anger that I've had really surprised me. I'm sure it
yeah.
was always there. Um, but there were some things that I was feeling that felt close to, or just almost like rage inside, that I
Mm,
really had to pay attention to and find some safe space to talk about it, with others. And mostly that's been other women of color or Asian American women, just because they've known what I'm talking about, and just also like even just walking. I remember 2 years ago after everything, feeling like I had to go outside and walk, and I was so angry. And I'm a very slow person normally,
yeah.
but I was moving like at a light speed because that rage just needed somewhere to go, that anger, which was really just sadness and grief. So I think giving it space, acknowledging that it's there, um, just pouring my heart out to God in it, very honestly, um, and then also in community, in safe community where I wasn't going to be met with just encouragement to become bitter,
Right.
but also encouragement to put it away and not be divisive, because I bring it up. And so yeah, honesty and
Yeah.
community.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Community is so important.
Yeah.
What I've seen out of this, sometimes people find their voice. I've seen people
Yeah.
find their voice in this. I've seen organizations be birthed out of what is happening, where people needed representation, people needed their story to be heard from people that look like them,
Yeah.
and so you're seeing a rise of that. I was talking to a young lady here in Atlanta who started or she's a teacher. She started an organization for Asian American youth.
Mm,
To really have a place of belonging, a club of belonging. It's like an entrepreneurship type club, but they also talk about everything. So there's just a lot of things that has really spurred a lot of people
yeah.
to really lead. And you're seeing this generation, it's like we respect our elders, but we're not going to just, go along to get along. There's a
Yeah.
saying that Pastor Peter Lim, who's the pastor of I think it's Four Square Church here in Atlanta, but he does a lot of stuff with, we partner with him a lot with Be the
Okay.
Bridge. But he was telling us that he gave the word, I cannot think of it right now, but it's a Korean word of kind of like what how his parents would actually say, you kind of gotta put your head down and you just keep pushing
Mm,
forward, like you don't let it bother you, but
yeah.
you're like stuffing,
Yeah.
stuffing and like, and then this pain and anger. But I'm glad to see that people are talking, people are communicating, people are coming together. There is solidarity, and I think it's important. One of the things we do in Be the Bridge is to make sure that we know each other's stories, because those in the margins, sometimes we can be pitted against each other. And
Hmm.
because we don't know each other, we don't know our stories, we don't know the history, there's so much we don't know about each other. But when we sit down and we're able to have this discussion, we're able to find out more about each other and have more empathy
Yeah.
for each other's story. And I think that's what I love. About what we do here at Be the Bridge. You had a project that you work with the Voices of Lament with Latasha Morrison and so many other brilliant writers. One of the writers that wrote some of the liturgies is Mariah Humphreys,
Yeah.
who's also a part of Be the Bridge. You shared a poem about Psalm 37, 7 through 11 called Anger. And I think that's your way of how you channel,
Mm,
what you're feeling. And it says, anger, I will not tame her. Can you share a little bit about the collective work and what it meant to you
yeah.
about your poem? And I would love for you to read the poem.
Sure. Yeah. I loved everything that you shared. It's so beautiful too. About just coming together and hearing each other's stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that being a part of that book was just such a gift. I feel like just being around the other women, being led by Natasha, being around women like Mariah and others was just, I just still am so grateful to hear their stories, not just have the writing together, but,
Yeah.
we would meet on Zoom. And then I had like a schedule conflict. And so I would miss a lot. But the times that I was able to go, I just carried that with me. I feel like that was
Yeah.
another thing that carried me through some of the
Wow.
difficulty, just knowing these other women were there who understood that depth of pain, some in
Yeah.
very different ways, like you were saying, different stories, but like we could be together and we could
Yeah.
commit to being together in it and expressing our lament together. That was huge. So, yeah, it was such an honor. And yeah, I would encourage anyone that hasn't read the book to get it because I think it just gives a map too um, for how to walk through lament, because we talk about
Yes.
that very often.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can read the poem. It's Anger, I Will Not Tame Her.
Mhm.
And so I kind of addressed some of that already, just dealing with my own anger. And so this was kind of a poem, I guess, about and to anger. So,
Yeah.
anger, I will not tame her. Anger, I will not tame her. I will tend to her instead. My hands are not tied, they are busy with a work of love. My mouth will not stay muted. It speaks prophecy and poetry. My mind is not empty. No, it remembers. Anger, I will not shush her. I will listen to her instead. My ears are not closed. They are open to the sound of suffering. My heart will not stay hard. It is soft like soil wet with the tears of 1,000 clouds. My body will not stay rigid. It welcomes the wails of my ancestors. Comfort women, forbidden comfort. Hanyo, who know the dark depths of the sea, how it feels to be silent, swimming down, unafraid of the pressure, proud of holding their breath to feed a hungry nation. Anger, she tells me the sad stories and sins. She carries the weight of war and unjust systems. She wields the power of thunder, oceans, rivers, and rain. She is fire burning with the question, how long? She is something like courage. She roots our connected long suffering. She reminds us who we wait for. To refrain from her rage, I must first let her speak. Anger, show me your tears and your sorrow. Sing me your cries of not yet, your songs of the oppressed. Teach me how to hope for a better tomorrow and resign to the things I was never meant to burn down. I will wait with you, like my Omma and her Omoni before her. I will look ahead for our God, a burning bush, a hot coal, a fire pit to stand beside while the rooster crows again, and we remember how much we need a savior who knows, who feels, who sees, who loves, who is worthy to bring justice, who doesn't delay. Anger, I will hope with you for a wide space of mended land. It's just ahead, a little while longer now. Anger, tell me about the places that are still broken. I will sit with you. While you become a glowing ember of warmth and light, I will seek what's still unseen. Let my heart be searched clean. I will bring you to a place to lie down and rest. Anger.
Wow. Beautiful. I think in a culture that tells us that we must stuff our anger
Mm,
or we cannot show our anger, that does a disservice to
yeah.
many of us, and but I think what we have to be shown is the proper way to channel our
Yeah.
anger, you know, um, and what that looks like, for some, people exercise, for some, talking it out. For some it's screaming, for some it's, riding a bike or whatever, for writing, singing,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like. But I think what we have to do is just teach people how to channel what we're feeling, and that will help. But teaching us to stuff it and to pretend like it didn't happen,
Yeah.
try to erase it, that does a disservice, because that is only going to turn into a huge mess,
Right. Right.
because it will explode.
Yep.
It will explode. And so, what are some things, Tasha, that's bringing you hope,
Mm,
in this season?
yeah. Again, community, if that's not redundant to say, but I think community, one of the things that I kind of started, I don't know how many years ago, I should know, but it was a group of Asian American women and started off with 4 women, and it was out of desperation. And it has grown. And one of the things we did a year ago was host this Hope and Han event, and Han being the Korean word for that kind of intergenerational trauma, that stuffing of,
Mm.
just suffering and carrying it.
Mhm.
Um, and I know it's used in other Asian cultures as well. And so we talked as a group about what it means to have that, and the things that are passed down to us, both from our ethnic cultural background and also our American
Mm.
history, um, and also carry hope. And so I think even just being in community with other women and being able to talk about both things, that we can have both things, has given me a lot of hope. And I think seeing more and more people just show up as their whole selves, um, and kind of, bringing belonging with them in their own bodies. Not that it's always welcome or always easy, but doing that, and then again, just doing that with others. I think that gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
What are some things that you do that bring you joy?
Um, I love. I didn't get that. Oh, sorry about that.
So we did not invite you
Yes, you
into
are not part of this conversation. Writing obviously brings me joy. There's all kinds of emotions in that, but travel is something, kind of when you were describing about just learning about other cultures. It's a big family value. And so even just thinking about travel, like
Yeah.
one of those
Yeah.
people, I will like get on Airbnb and, for 30 minutes, just like look for a place somewhere that we're not even going to. Just just to get this feeling of another
Right.
culture.
Okay.
So I love that. I love just learning about different things. Right now, National Geographic shows are giving me a lot of joy.
Okay.
I
Okay.
know,
That's
so
good.
odd. So I was just watching this show called The Secrets of the Whales.
Oh,
Funny,
okay.
I feel like it ties in though, because it was they were talking about just the diversity of different whale groups
Yeah.
and how they have their own cultures and
Yes.
languages, and I am just fascinated. So just learning,
Right.
letting my curiosity lead, and then food is a huge joy. Eating food, planning trips around food, yeah,
Right.
and then my family. So
Right. I love it. I love it. But you know what? You can learn a lot from watching National Geographic. Like
yes,
about animals.
obsessed.
Like I'm fascinated about pandas and elephants.
Yeah,
You know, so, so I get it. So you're speaking to someone that like, and some of that is just kind of like relaxing.
yeah,
Like I like to watch pandas eat. I
yeah.
know. I just said that out loud. For real.
I know.
Like,
Well, I brought up whales.
you ever seen them like eat a carrot? Like, you're just like, oh.
Yeah.
So, it's so fun. It's so great to really talk with you and to have you on the podcast today. Um, when this airs, it's going to be during AAPI month.
Yeah.
What would you say to those that are listening that are a part of your culture, your ethnicity,
Mm,
during this month? I know that's Asian American Pacific Islander month, so that's a broad base of,
yeah.
of people groups. But what would you say? What would you want people to get out of, um, you know, this month or this time?
Yeah. I would just say that, know that you are worth a month of celebration and honor, but that you are worth far more
Yes.
month. And so, as you ingest that, like how can that help you take up space with yourself, your whole self? Um, Not in a, pushy way, but just really, you are worth it
Yeah.
completely. So that's simple, but I think that's what I would say.
Yeah. And every month, like you are who you are
Yes.
365 days
Yeah.
of the year. So I just say that that's just a month where you can show out a little bit, where you
Yeah.
allow people to, this is where other people decide to recognize it, but you always recognize it. Like I
Yeah.
always say, like Black History Month. I mean, we should be really embarrassed we have to have a Black History Month
I
because
know.
our history is American history. Like, America would not be America without people that look like you or people that look like me. And until we recognize that and stop trying to hyphenate things away and,
Yeah.
dash it away, we're doing ourselves a disservice. We're not going to be all that we can be when we try to segment out,
Mm,
people groups and stuff.
yeah.
So I think it's really important that we live into what, what we say, liberty and justice for all,
Yeah.
like what we say we represent, let it be truth to it. So I'm so grateful to meet you. The book is Tell Me the Dream Again, Reflections on Family, Ethnicity, and Sacred Work of Belonging. And just so happens that your book launches in that month. And
Yeah.
so that's why we're doing this having this conversation. So we'll actually put this out around the time that your book launches, so that
Oh,
people would have resources
yeah.
that they can buy. Look at your books that you have. Do you have books that are written by Korean Americans, Chinese Americans, South Asian Americans,
Mhm.
do you have books that are written by African Americans, Nigerians, all
Yeah.
of that is important, Latin writers. Like, I think that's important, for us to have that. Look at your collection, look at the things that you watch and make sure that those are just the little things that you can do to start making your world a little bit larger. So, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. It was my pleasure to meet you. Now we know each other. You got to tell me about your trip to
Yes.
Korea and what that is like for your family, the experience.
Yeah.
We stayed at I think it was Hyundai Beach when we were in
Oh, yeah.
Busan. We were right there by the water. It was so nice. Like it was incredible. And fashion, like, let me tell you, they are into fashion. Koreans are into
Yeah.
fashion and cute things. Everything has to be cute.
Yeah.
Everything has to be
Whole
cute.
culture.
A whole culture of cute, you know. And there's so many like little, I haven't seen it here. We may have it in cities, in some other cities, but they have all these like selfie stores. Like it's stores where you go in to take
Oh, yeah.
selfies. I was
Yeah. Yep.
like, this is so incredible. So, uh, so many things we have in common that we
Yes.
know. So, thank you so much
Oh, thank you.
for your writing and all the just beauty that you're leaving behind. I know
Oh,
your husband, your mom, your children, your father. I know they're all very proud of you.
oh,
So thank you so
thank
much for sharing with the
you.
Be the Bridge
I'm
community.
so, so honored. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay.